Well, the Guardians didn't add any major leaguers or hitters on January 15th. Certainly didn't make the biggest news when it came to Major League Baseball, but they did make a significant addition to the system that shouldn't go unnoticed.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in, Guardians fans, to the podcast about your team in the sport that is officially broken. Thanks for hanging out with us the next half hour. It's a big enough day for us to get together a second time this week because we are the only daily podcast that covers your Cleveland Guardians, the majors, the minors, the draft, and everything in between. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. I wish we were number one enough to sign big free agents. I'm Justin Lada, one of your two co-hosts, heading into year 4 and counting here with my friend and co-host Jeff Ellis, coming up on my 19th year covering the Guardians minor league system as a prospect writer and editor, where I haven't seen too many types of players that we're going to talk about today for the Guardians.
As you mentioned, I'm Jeff Ellis. I've been here since Locked On expanded into baseball almost 1,800 episodes ago. Before that, I was a national writer at Scout 24/7, focused on prospects and the draft. I want to thank you for making today's episode your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. A big shout out to all of our everydayers out there, everyone from our insiders to our Everydayer Club, to people who might work for the organization. We appreciate all of you up and down the line who tune into the show. It's a labor of love, even when Major League Baseball wants to crush your heart by being a completely broken system. We appreciate you coming in, and we appreciate this Guardians team somehow competing in a world they are not meant to compete in.
Yep, and at least there's some news to talk about. I know it's not the news everyone wants, but there's news to talk about, and
there's
still
talking about. There's a lot of fun. There is.
Yeah, there are things I guess everyone's going to say, well, we're living on hope, but I guess that's really it is. We're all living on hope these days. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Before we get into that, I want to let you know that we're going to get into how the Guardians fall into some MLB spending trends. Of course, that'll be a great day to talk about spending, right? So we'll talk about how they fall into that. We'll talk about Travis Bazzana's spring training invite, what that means. We'll talk about the Guardians' international free agent class. We'll lead off the show with the addition of the Guardians' newest pitching prospect, Franklin Gomez, and what he adds to the system. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The playoffs are marching on. FanDuel is in playoff mode. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. So who is Franklin Gomez? Why did the Guardians add him? I think this is interesting. I actually like this approach. I know there are some people saying, why don't they just spend their money in international free agency? I think it's also worth pointing out how international free agency works too. This is not like money that they get to spend or whatever. This is like it's like the draft. It's like a bonus pool.
It's a pool system
it's a pool system. So it's still money they're spending. I think a lot of people are confused about like they're pocketing the extra money. Like they're not pocketing any extra money. It's what you're allowed to spend. Like this is what they're capped at. They're assigned to based on everything else, just like the draft. So I actually like this approach a little bit better for the Guardians.
Can I give one more bit of information on it?
Sure.
Just the other thing I think people need to know too is like most of these deals were signed 2 to 3 years ago, and what happens then is
12 years
like,
old.
Yeah. So like there was the flip with the Mets from the A's to the Mets. That almost never happens. That's unheard of. So like Cleveland has deals in place, and there's even a chance that someone they had a deal in place with ended up like not keeping condition, not developing, so like sometimes you might have extra money left because not everyone comes along that you've set up your deals with that you are going to look to sign. So there's that side of it. And it's not like, hey, we have 1.5 million extra because this guy ballooned up. It's that you don't have another player to pivot to often. So just with that side of it as well.
It's a nasty, very ugly, yes. And it's also a broken system too. Way international free agency works. Yeah. So, but Gomez is interesting. I like this approach because you're basically taking what ended up being $1.5 million out of an $8 million pool for the Guardians. And instead of signing a player that's 16 years old, you're trading that money for a guy who's 20 years old now that you push into high A, who a lot of Mets prospectors, guys who cover the system and follow the Mets, really liked him, thought he was a very underrated prospect. And is going to go to Lake County, and he just turned 20 years old. He'll be 20 all year, who's coming off, somewhat of a breakout year in 2025. So it's actually much better. This way you're getting someone who's already gotten out of the international, like away from the complexes, right? Instead of signing a 16-year-old that won't probably play in Lynchburg for another 3 years, you get a pitching prospect who actually might be a legitimate pitching prospect who gets to go to high A to start the year, probably might get to double A, and you've already seen really promising signs from him. That's just kind of skipping some of the hard parts. And the Guardians also do not target. We'll talk about this more, but the Guardians do not really invest a lot of money in international pitching for a reason. And they got a guy who has already kind of been developed. And the Mets, by the way, have been very good at developing pitching too, right? Nolan McLean and Jonah Tong and Christian Scott. Like, they've done a pretty good job pitching wise. So I think this is an interesting move, and it's worth, keeping tabs on, because this is not something they normally do. I also, this is the second year in a row they've taken advantage of somebody else's bonus pool situation for their own game too, which I also like.
Yeah, it's Gomez will turn 21 this July. He's not the biggest kid. That's probably the biggest knock, is he's probably barely 6 feet. He is, by reports, BA had that he went from kind of a high 80s, low 90s to throwing low to mid 90s. I mean, he basically went from like 89 to 91 to 92 to 93, which is a big jump. That makes it usable. And, I was reading, I want to give credit to this Substack, the top 25 Mets prospects by Isaac Grofman, who had in here like just how much IVP, which is induced vertical break. So like he's got some things on his pitches that add some real depth and movement. He's got multiple pitches. He's working on a cutter, we saw as well, which we know Cleveland loves to add cutters, so they're going to help him develop that. But he's already got a deep developed pitch mix. He's got traits. And here's again from that Substack from this Mets writer. I'm going to just steal his quote here. There's a lot of development ahead, but in pitching development, you want malleable clay. And this is some of the richest, most malleable clay I've seen. And the Mets have, again, great pitching development. So Cleveland just got to continue going on. You and I were immediately discussing this. Like, he's a top 30 prospect for us both. It's a question of like getting some
somewhere, maybe even the low 20s, like could even be 20, somewhere closer to the 20 range.
So for 1.5 million, that they had the largest bonus pool, but because these contracts are often put together, and then there's the other side of it too. Like, some prospects would rather go sign with New York, or because there's a stronger Latin American community there. There's always advantages to those cities that have ties, or because it's like the Yankees are a big name, like that can matter to younger players like this. So Cleveland targeted their players. They got their players. They had extra money and used that flexibility to add a legit prospect who's already had some development, who's has a better chance to hit the big leagues than any of the guys who were signed today, because he's already hit high A and couldn't get there quicker. So I think it's a great addition. Really interesting prospect, and a great way to take that extra money, that extra flexibility, and use it.
Yeah, add some depth to the system, and a guy with a lot of some ceiling and upside. I saw some people talking about like Jonathan Santucci, who's in their system. People like the Mets, but they said they thought that Gomez had more upside than Santucci. And there's some relief risk here too. Let's be honest. He's shorter, and he's also got some control issues. He's been pretty much consistently a double-digit walk guy, so that's a concern. He does have a issue throwing strikes, which all contributes to the relief risk here. But yeah, we're talking about a guy who bumped up his velocity last year in a legitimate way, who I've seen reports on has got up to 96, 97 now.
Oh, okay. And I missed that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I saw a couple of reports from some Mets prospect writers that saw him in the upper 90s. So he tops out there already at that size. The changeup looks good. The slider looks good. Like you said, I think he's already got kind of a cutter based on some of the data that's already out there. So it looks like he's just kind of tweaking it, I guess, with more like, I can't remember what the shape change was, but there was something he wanted to change to the
very clearly a smart kid who knows his craft too, which is a big bonus.
Yes, that's always good too. And let's point out too, he was originally signed as an outfielder, so he has been pitching for a couple years, but he was originally an outfielder. So, he's still kind of newish to pitching. So that also potentially means there's a little more ceiling and upside to come here development wise, which is also extremely exciting. So international signing day was Thursday. So the Guardians added, a couple guys that were 16 or whatever, 17 years old. They added Gomez, who was a team, was an international signing by the Mets. They also traded some money to get Gomez. We'll talk about more about that strategy and who else they added on today's show. The NFL playoffs are marching on, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode every game day during the NFL playoffs. FanDuel is giving customers like you even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for you inside the app. So each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts. You can apply the bets you like most. It lets you get into your game day instincts, backing up momentum, defense, quarterback, coaching, more juice on the bets that you already like instead of forcing you to find a new bet. It makes your bets feel bigger as well. The NFL lines for the division round, 1.5 points still going to the Bills over the Broncos. That's the closest game. As for the Guardians, we have seen the over-under win total is 80.5 for 2026 right now. I would take the over on that, even without any improvements to the offense externally. You can make your picks, then apply your profit boost, going even after bigger payouts while get the playoff rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Always want to thank you all for being part of the community and making Locked On Guardians your first listen of the day. And also thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network, because you live your team every day. Take it up a level, go ad free. Join the Everyday Club today. Get Locked On Guardians with no interruptions, members only Discord access, and more for $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonguardians.supercast.com. Check the link in the show notes to learn more. The Guardians, we were talking about this the other day, Jeff, about the international approach they used to take, and we were kind of saying like, well, they got guys like Rocchio and Noel and Martinez and Gonzalez to the majors, and they have all had some level of impact. Which I guess when you're talking about signing guys that are technically 14 or 13 and don't technically sign until they're 16, I guess that's pretty good. But they haven't really developed any stars out of it, and that's because I feel like they treat this the same way. Well, you're talking about Jose and Caminero, I guess.
Caminero,
you're going to counter with,
yeah.
Well, they didn't develop Caminero; they signed him. He went to most of these minor leagues.
I mean, technically, you got Yandy as well.
Yes, they did develop
multi-time All-Star,
yeah.
who they did develop.
But, yes, so they have treated. They still treat the international free agent market like the draft. They spread the money around. They don't really ever target one big player, which if you count Gomez as one of those players, that's $1.5 billion they basically spent on him, right? Like they reduced their bonus pool by the Guardians didn't give the Mets $1.5 million. The Mets just gained $1.5 million from their own allotted bonus pool, and the Guardians shrank theirs so they could add a prospect. So we like that. But the Guardians did do a couple things that were a little different. So, we've been talking for a while too about how do they change their approach to the draft? Are they changing their approach and the kind of players they want to acquire? And I would say that, because a lot of people are like, oh, they probably just signed a bunch of contact hitting shortstops to play good defense. And yes, everybody signs a lot of shortstops out of the international class. That's where a lot of the middle guys play. But the Guardians did do some different things with this class, Jeff.
Yeah, and can I just say about the shortstop thing, like the best player on your team traditionally and most athletic in high school and international plays shortstop. Like if you're taking a guy who's already a first baseman, that's probably not a great sign. Like you should be doing exactly what they're talking about here. And they did do some different things in this class. They took some different approaches. Now you're going to see a lot of guys, and when you do the write-ups, who are shortstops, and you're going to see a lot of guys who control the zone. The other thing I'll say too is when you're signing guys like one of the top players in this class for them, Correll Naranjo, it's like he's not going to turn 17 till like May. So you're talking about a 16-year-old kid who, what we talk about pitching, right? They're looking for traits and then seeing like, hey, who's going to grow? Who's going to add power? Who's going to get stronger? Like these are a lot of skinny kids. So you're looking at present bat speed and hitting traits and then hoping to maybe see more.
Yeah. So let's go some of these names here. And also credit to a lot of this information to Baseball America's Ben Badler. It's incredible work that he does. I can't imagine how he puts all this together, because this is the hardest. The draft is hard to cover, I would say. This is even harder because it's international and there's just multiple countries involved and different languages, obviously, all that kind of stuff. So credit to Ben Badler and Baseball America for all this info. But Svert Reinoso was their top signing at $820,000. And then again, he's a switch hitting shortstop. I know everyone's going to talk about that, but he's 6'2" already, and maybe that's embellished a little bit. Sometimes that happens, but typically that's a little bigger than the Guardians do sign. He's 17 already, I believe, but still there's going to be room for growth there too for him. So that size means he may move off shortstop, and the fact that he's already that big or reported to be that big, that itself alone is a little different. He's described as an offensive-oriented player who may move off of short, could stick at short, but he has enough arm for third. That alone itself is a little bit different for Cleveland, because it's not a guy who necessarily winds up being a shortstop. He's also, again, not 5'8", 5'9".
Yeah, and he's the only guy who made the MLB's top 50 list. I believe he came in the 30s. He's also, like Svert was described in a few places, very Travis Bazzana like a baseball rat, a guy who is all of those traits. So you're looking at physical tools, guy who probably is a third baseman long term, but has some serious upside and potential, and a guy that he's fun to dream on. I'll say all of these guys, who knows? I'm being very honest. I know that's maybe not what people want to hear, but just when we're talking about guys so far away, it's a lot of projection from 90 feet away. So you are looking just for traits and tools that you think are going to help these players turn into major league talent.
Yeah, the one thing I thought was interesting too, the other player, he wasn't the most money, but I think it's the most interesting signing they made. We're talking about they added Gomez, was Christopher Brujan, who got $260,000. And Ben Badler had noted that's more than the Guardians normally pay for pitching in the international market.
Stood out to me as well.
I'm trying to think of who are the best names you could think of. Let's exclude Danny Baez because he was Cuban, and I don't think Baez went to the minors. I think he went straight to the majors, didn't he?
Yes.
So you got Fausto, Carmona, Roberto Hernandez,
Rafi Lefty, Rafi Perez,
Rafi Lefty, Rafi Righty. We're all international guys.
Genmar Gomez and Hector Rondon, though they didn't really do it here.
Yeah.
They did do it. At the big league
Genmar
level.
was just okay, but Rondon had a nice career once he finally got healthy. And then we're talking, the guys that didn't make it that were big names were Luis Ortiz and Carlos Vargas. Vargas made it, but never as much as some people thought, like myself. I know you weren't as high on him, but
Kelvin De La Cruz was supposed to be the best one in that group.
Oh God,
Gomez
yes.
and then I liked Alexander. You didn't say Alexander Perez, right? The other guy.
Not, no.
Okay, wow. I really liked Alexander Perez back in the day. I was really high on him.
So Brujan is 6'3", so he's already a big kid for his age. 200 pounds, already throws 94. The report from Badler said that he likes to throw his changeup more than most pitchers at this level, so that's a good thing. Changeup is a hard pitch to develop, so he's already got a mid-90s fastball and a good secondary and changeup. He's already got size, and then that's why they're spending the money on him. They don't normally spend. It's not obviously $260,000. It's not a ton of money in terms of how this usually works, but that's different for them. And again, I think like you've always said, Jeff, when a team does something different than the normal approach, it's worth keeping an eye on.
I was going to bring that up. So you beat me to it. It is a different approach. He does to me with like some of the velocity and other bits. Right now, he screams reliever, but you're going to give him every opportunity for a player this young. Nothing says he can't develop a bit more into a starter. But yeah, it is very unusual. And this was such a Venezuelan heavy class. I feel like Brujan was Venezuelan. We also have to point out Franklin Gomez, also Venezuelan.
Brujan was Dominican.
Sorry, Dominican.
Yeah.
But it was Venezuelan and Dominican were the two heavy spots from it. And even when they made a trade, it was to add another Venezuelan player. So it's interesting in that regard. Yep. I know we're running low on time. I have to mention Kirill Naranjo. Mm-hmm. He is a guy who a lot of places really liked. Good bat speed. Small guy right now. You're hoping he's going to grow. Baseball America said if he's 6'2", he'd have had $1 million plus bonus. So there's some fun traits with that. And then I have to mention, hey, it's always fun to add a Carlos Martinez back in the system, though I don't think he's going to have a home run ball bounce off of his head. Defense first. Venezuelan catcher, one of 3 Venezuelan catchers. Find someone in life to love you as much as the Guardians love Venezuelan catchers.
Oh, yeah. What do we got? Victor Martinez. I'm trying to think of who else. They've had a lot in the minors.
Yeah, and they've added guys that other orgs have cut as backups, like left-handed Venezuelan catchers.
Yeah, it's like about left-handed hitting Venezuelan catchers with good defense. That is their thing. Yeah. There's, I think, 2 more players we want to talk about in this class that we'll get to. We'll talk about Travis Bazzana getting an invite to MLB spring training with Cleveland, what that means, and some spending trends that you probably aren't going to want to hear, but it's the truth. Coming up. The offseason is slowly coming to a close here. The spring training will be here in just a month, but keep up to date with all things Guardians the rest of the offseason by hitting the bell on YouTube to get notified of videos we record, like when the Guardians trade for players like Franklin Gomez. If we, put a video out on him, that means we think is interesting. We didn't put videos out on Stuart Fairchild and Carter Kieboom. Carter Cabust. So we did for Franklin Gomez. That tells you, that tells you where we're at on Franklin Gomez. And you would have gotten notified of that video if you hit the bell on YouTube. You also get notified of all the episodes when they go live, as well as other stuff. And auto download wherever you get your podcast. We are literally free everywhere you get podcasts. So you keep the show in your feed no matter what is going on in your life and what's going on in baseball, even when it makes you mad, which it's going to do a lot these days. The last guy I want to mention, Jeff, is Wilbur Reinoso. So the Guardians have 2 Reinosos in this class, which is interesting. He is another switch hitting shortstop who, again, is lean, but Baseball America describes his tool set as louder than Cleveland for Cleveland. And it's got athleticism, speed, plus arm, great bat speed and impact for his age, could turn into potential plus raw power. So what you're not really seeing here with the guys that have, made these reports, the bigger names, there's none of this really advanced approach to hitting or, really good contact skills up the middle. Like they're up the middle players. So hopefully they don't all turn into Junior San Quintins, who was an up the middle player who was very quickly a first baseman. But a lot of the descriptions here in the past would have said a contact oriented player that pulls the ball and all this other stuff. We're seeing a couple of guys listed in here that's saying, louder raw tool sets, good bat speed, impact, tries to do damage with his swing. Those are all different traits and characteristics about players that we haven't seen from the Guardians in terms of international free agency the last several years.
Yeah, and you got to mention Joseph Leda as well, who got $350,000. Their other big money guy, I'll say this, Oswaldo Bracco is more of a defensive center fielder. I was trying to remember, man, I've had a rough day. We didn't get too much into Rafael Lara, right? The guy who got the second highest bonus, who was their traditional type of guy.
He is on there. Yeah, he's
their second highest bonus. But Joseph Leda, big arm, big power, was kind of the Baseball America write-up. Like, he is boom or bust all over him. So that's if you're looking for another power guy. And then they had 14 others. Very quickly, I guess, Edwin Fernandez, Jose Rios, Jan Guerrero, Yorwin Toledo, Sebastian Puche, Reynel Cuisado, Justin Mello, Cesar Navar, Andres Perez, Victor Marin, Sebastian Espinoza, Diego Fernandez, Anthony Corella, and Angel Cordova.
Yeah. All right. So, big day for all those guys. That's life-changing money for a lot of them, even the ones that are getting, a couple $100,000, 6 figures. That's huge. We'd all love to have $600,000 handed to us at age 16, right? That would be
I'd love to have
fantastic.
It now.
Yeah, I'd love to have it now. Absolutely. We'll just quickly talk about this, but Travis Bazzana is going to be at Major League Spring Training. Stephen Vogt confirmed that on Thursday, and obviously not on the 40. What does that mean? I know people said, well, surely he's got to have a chance to make the team out of spring training. I don't think that's what it is at all. Just because you're at Major League Spring Training, I know everyone's going to say thanks for throwing cold water and making today's baseball news even worse for saying that. But I don't think it has anything to do with him making the team out of spring training. It's just a chance for them to get more looks at him in spring training, get into more games. Don't have to call him up. He's in the lineup. He's around the big league club every day with big league teammates. And remember, he's also playing for Team Australia in the World Baseball Classic, Jeff's favorite tournament of the year. and he's going to need to be at spring training early anyway to prepare for that. So it might as well have him there on the non-roster invitees list. I don't really see this as a surprise.
No, it's like the latter a few years ago. I told Justin today I was kind of excited to see Clayton Kershaw at the World Baseball Classic. I think the event should be 40 and up. It should only be people 40 and up. I would care about the World Baseball Classic if it was 40 and up league. Then it would be interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, hey, there are some teams that are going to have that. Like, I think a lot of the Cuban team is sometimes older, and like the Dutch maybe sometimes Czech, where our old buddy Martin Cervenka
check go
is
later, I guess, but I don't know. I don't know where the rosters are posted. Oh,
yeah. Okay, wow. Well, hey, look, Rob Manfred says he wants to introduce the idea of an in-season tournament. I don't think he needs to. The World Baseball Classic is already as good as it's going to get. You're not going to improve on that. I'm sorry. And you're just a hater because you don't like it. I cannot wait for the World Baseball Classic, where I don't want to see Clayton Kershaw pitch. So the one thing you're actually excited about is the one thing I don't care about, which is Clayton Kershaw being on that team. I give zero what's about that, him being on that team.
I just always think it's fun to see a guy getting sent off. But enough about
he's not going to play. He already said he doesn't want to play.
But enough Yeah, enough about a worthless event that no one cares about.
What about ex-Dodgers?
The spending.
Yeah, the spending. Okay, so obviously by now everybody has heard that Kyle Tucker's going to the Dodgers. The rich get richer, and the rest of the 99% of us just get to look on and eat our ramen noodles for baseball. Whatever. But I saw an interesting tweet the other day. I think I sent this to you, Jeff, from Aaron Gleeman, who is one of the Twins writers at The Athletics. And he broke down the spending by division. And this is before the Dodgers signed Kyle Tucker. And before that, the NL West led. This is not just the offseason spending. This is total payrolls. Over $1 billion for the NL West. Obviously, we know that's carried very heavily by the Dodgers. But, Arizona spends quite a bit, too. The Giants have a pretty big payroll. Second is the NL East, 989. So you got the Mets that pay a lot of money. The Phillies, right? The Braves are not in a small payroll. The AL East is second, right behind them with a little. This is before I think the Dodgers or the Yankees traded for. Not that it matters. Ryan Weathers doesn't make that much money. $986 million. So they're $3 million behind the NL East. So obviously, you have the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Orioles have spent money this offseason. So there's that. Toronto obviously has spent the most money this offseason, I think. Fourth is the AL West at $838 million. So that's your the Astros, the Mariners, who don't have usually the biggest of payrolls, but it's still pretty big. The Angels have a stupidly big payroll for not much winning. So there's that. Then you have the bottom of the barrel. You have the NL Central at $680 million, the AL Central at $573 million. What do you notice about that spending breakdown, Jeff? What seems to be the common denominator here?
Well, I mean, it's what you're looking at, your middle of the country area that typically has lower cost of living, has tighter finances, and doesn't have quite the big end money as some of the other big coastal cities have.
I know people are going to say, well, just spend more money. The owners are being cheap, blah, blah, blah. And yes, I'm sure there are ways you can say that certain owners should spend more money. I think the real problem is, like, again, you mentioned this off air before we were talking, the Dodgers TV contract pays their entire payroll. That's before sponsorships, which they have millions in sponsorships.
And merchandising and tickets.
Merchandising and tickets, right. All that kind of stuff. So they can already pay for their team based off the TV contract alone, while you're looking at Bally's going belly up. They already dumped all their Major League Baseball teams. Now they're going to dump the NBA and the NHL because they're going out of business finally, which they should have because they were terrible and their app is terrible anyway. Everybody else doesn't have TV contracts that compare to that. So even if you want to say other teams should spend more money, they're never going to spend to those levels. And those teams are going to continue to just play hungry hippos, all the free agents, and they're always going to win. And they're going to keep those guys, and they're going to get guys when they leave. And I don't know, Tarek School will probably get traded to the Dodgers at some point this year, right? Like,
and why would anyone, unless it's a Jose who fell in love with Cleveland, why is anyone going to ever agree? Why is anyone though going to ever agree to to stay when you know that that's what's waiting for you in free agency, right? Like you're going to go to where you have the chance to earn massive amounts of money because that's just the way of it. There's so much money to be made by walking away. Why would anyone agree to stay?
Yeah, I don't fault them for that. I don't fault the players. Like we would all do the same thing. I know,
Yes.
Jose did the one thing, and yeah, I know people are going to say, well, at $100 and something million, you're still set for life. Yeah, and Jose prefers the comfort of Cleveland, which is great. I would say the same thing. Because I was here first and I lived here my entire life. Sure, I would say $100 million to stay where I've been this whole time would be great, right? But if I didn't have that attachment to the city and I got offered $600 million somewhere else, yeah, I'd take it too. That's just the way the world works. But yeah, the NL Central and the AL Central have the lowest payrolls. And I would be curious to see what that number looks like when you kick the Cubs out of the equation, because let's be honest, Chicago is a big market. It's the one big market in the Midwest, right? Is Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And the White Sox spend less than the Guardians. So that would even though they're in Chicago, I wouldn't call them big market players. But you take the Cubs out of that, and those payrolls go even lower. The Brewers, the Pirates, the Reds, the Cardinals sometimes spend. I suppose they have spent, but they're all about the barrel. There's a reason why those payrolls are the lowest. It's not because they have the cheapest owners. It's because the owners on the coasts have more money to spend by default. And the Midwest teams, by the way, like Bob Nutting and who's the owner for the Reds?
The Crawls, right?
Oh no, Crawl is their president of baseball operation. I think it's Bob Castellini.
But I think Crawl's dad is also like a part-time, is a pretty high up.
Is that what it is? Okay. Yeah. And then you've got, the Dolans here and the Brewers ownership, Mark Antonazio. These are all like mom and pop owners that used to own teams like back in the late 80s before things exploded, So there's a reason that these Midwest teams don't have the same amount of money to spend. Like we could sit here and say till we're blue in the face, yeah, spend more money, but you're never going to compete money-wise when you have these behemoths on the coasts. It's just not going to happen. They're going to keep spending more. You don't have an opportunity to spend because they can outdo you by 2 or 3 times if they want. I mean, yeah. I know we're running out of time here, but the Dodgers, we were talking about this off air. Ha-Sung Kim, the guy they spent $12 million on last year, is an international free agent from Korea. He's going to go play on the bench for them this year because they just added Kyle Tucker. You make $12 million over 3 years for Cleveland, you're a starter, except for Austin Hedges. So,
well, that's also the thing too. Like it's like Kim wasn't very good. He had a high BABIP, and that allowed his numbers to be inflated. But Michael Conforto was terrible for them, and they whatever, they can cut bait and move on. Like Cleveland can't just cut bait and move. Like it's a difference between when one team has 10 times the revenue stream, and it's a broken system. And the unfortunate thing is baseball really probably should have. Let's face it, the whole salary cap and everything else is kind of a communist structure of share and share alike and spread the money around. And for baseball's long-term longevity, they probably should have adopted that system, because all they've done is alienate smaller fans over the time and not be able to grow a bigger brand outside of major markets.
Hey, Rob Manfred has no problem eliminating more fans in small areas. I mean, that's why they took out the short season
minor league teams. Yep.
Yeah, without access to major league teams and push them further away from the game. Rob Manfred's legacy is so great. Gotta love it. What a great offseason. Thanks for tuning in today to Locked On Guardians. We hope you.
The Guardians still did something fun. The Guardians still did something very fun today. It's still a positive as a Guardians fan. In terms of their own actions.
Problem is the fun thing they did won't really matter for another 2 years at the most. And
but still a fun thing.
May not be a 2027 season.
Still a fun thing.
Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Guardians to get the latest episodes. We'll be back on Monday to talk about whatever the heck happens over the weekend. If any Guardians news pops up, never miss an episode. Every day our club is built for you. Get Locked On Guardians ad-free, plus members only Discord access and more. LockedOnGuardians.supercast.com to join the club.
Thank you for joining us, and go Guardians, go.